Elizabeth Johnson exuded elegance, grace, and refinement. This should have triggered their suspicions. Rather than looking for work in a rural area of Georgia, a teacher of her caliber should be leading a girls' school in London or New York. However, they were too overjoyed by her application at the time. Shortly after Elizabeth's arrival, school was called to order in the local church. Eventually, the kids were only bringing good news home. One could say that Elizabeth was a smart teacher. There was not a single student who didn't adore their teacher. The children's academic growth had their parents overjoyed. However, not everyone in town shared that opinion. Harris, the local punk, dished out more sinister tales. He waved a bottle of whiskey around to emphasize his point. "That woman is suspicious. After dark, I spotted Elizabeth in the woods. She dancing and chanting in an unknown tongue around a campfire." The bartender replied, "Nonsense." Harris leaned forward. "They say she's got an altar in her room, and it ain't an altar to the Almighty." The bartender raised his finger. "You're drunk. Go home and sleep." Harris eventually left the forge, but for weeks afterward he couldn't stop raving about Elizabeth Johnson. Children at the school went through a transformation over the course of those weeks. Their joking eventually stopped. However, strange things started to happen. Things started going missing from homes and farms. Things with a high value, such as jewelry, farm equipment, or cash. Children's voices had a harsh when they spoke to their parents. They never to apologize for being disrespectful, no matter how severely they were disciplined. The attorney's wife confided in the priest's wife that her daughter had recently lied to her. "She denied it to my face after I witnessed her punch her younger brother, and take a cake from him." The priest's wife opened up to the congregation about her fear of the kids' forest games. They chant in what sounds like a foreign language and have very peculiar dance routines. Could it be something they're studying in class? Questioned the attorney's spouse. "Can't be." The priest's wife gushed, "Elizabeth is such a lovely, refined woman." Even so, they looked at each other with unease. On the other hand, Harris knew for certain. He went door to door, shouting, "Elizabeth turning the youngins to the devil, that's what the teacher's doing." When Harris were walking by the general store, the priest admonished him, "Don't be ridiculous." Harris told him, "I'm not trying to be funny. You are blind. Elizabeth should meet the same fate as the witches of Salem and be burned at the stake." The priest's face white with anger. He told Harris to leave. But the words of the scoundrel echoed in his head. In addition, the kids' strange behavior persisted. They acted almost possessed. The priest knew he would have to investigate. The time had come sooner than he had anticipated. When his son came down with a cold the following Monday, his mother kept him home from preschool. The priest's wife greeted when the priest got home from his late lunch shift. She appeared terrified, and had a white face. She exclaimed, "I heard our son chanting something over and over again in his bedroom." I quietly opened the door. Our son prayed to God with the cross upside down. The priest shook with fear. He held his Bible tightly to his chest. Absolutely diabolical. The boy couldn't have picked up such knowledge anywhere in town besides school. Suddenly, the attorney's wife burst in the door behind him. She pleaded with the priest to hurry up. Harris is being seen running around town while brandishing a torch. He threatening to torch the local school. "Elizabeth turning the youngins to the devil, that's what the teacher's doing," said the priest's wife. The priest bolted from the house, followed closely by the two women. As they approached the church, they saw a massive plume of smoke rising from the building. There were already flames engulfing the building as panicked parents threw wet sacks and buckets of water from the pump at the blaze. Smith cackling unrepentantly from across the building, which was filled with the cries of the trapped students and their teacher. The fire burned with a supernatural intensity. When it was clear that no one could be saved, the priest was claimed to have heard Elizabeth laughing from within the building. The church burned for hours until it was put out. Nothing was left. As parents disturbed searched for any trace of their children to bury, Harris prudently left town. His work against Satan's minions was done. Elizabeth's burnt body was buried deep in the ground, and covered with a brick tomb. The children's smaller bodies were interred beneath wooden crosses. The children and Elizabeth used to chant in the woods outside of town. Some believe that their voices can still be heard today in the graveyard at Burnt Church. Ghosts and shadowy figures have both been spotted strolling the cemetery late at night. They also claim that anything placed on a brick taken from the grave of the nefarious teacher will catch fire.